Hi, we are Jimena, Isaac, Jorge, and Alejandra. Today we are going to talk about the ovarian and uterine cycles. Non-pregnant females normally exhibit cycle changes in the ovaries and uterus during their reproductive years. Each cycle takes about a month and consists of both oogenesis and preparation of uterus to receive a fertilized egg. Hormones secreted from the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary gland, and the ovaries control the main events of the cycles. The ovarian cycle includes a series of events that occur during and after the maturation of an oocyte. The uterine cycle involves a series of changes in the endometrium of the uterus to prepare it for the arrival of a fertilized egg that will develop there until birth. The hormones secreted from the ovaries during the ovarian cycle control the events of the uterine cycle.
The ovarian and uterine cycles and the hormonal changes that regulate them are known as the female reproductive cycle. Gonadotropin releasing hormone controls the cycles by simulating follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. The duration of the female reproductive cycle typically ranges from 24 to 34 days. For the sake of discussion, we will describe a 28-day cycle. A longitudinal section of an ovary shows that it is made up of an outer cortex surrounding an inner medulla. The outer cortex contains thousands of immature follicles, which are made up of an immature oocyte surrounded by a layer of epithelial cells. A female is born with all the follicles that she will ever have, about 700,000. However, only about 400 of these follicles will ever mature. Since oocytes are present at birth, they are the same age as the female, which explains why older women are more prone to have children who are born with genetic defects.
The ovarian cycle. The ovarian cycle is divided into three parts: the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. During the follicular phase, FSH released by the anterior pituitary gland simulates the development of a follicle in one of the ovaries. As the follicle matures, oogenesis is initiated and continues, and the epithelial cells of the follicle multiply and secrete the female sex hormones, mainly estrogen. As estrogen level rises, negative feedback stops the secretion of FSH so that the follicular phase comes to an end. The estrogen spike causes the secretion of GnRH from the hypothalamus, which in turn causes a surge of LH from the anterior pituitary gland, resulting in ovulation on about 14 days of a 28-day cycle. Ovulation is the release of the secondary oocyte from the follicle and into the oviduct. After ovulation, the luteal phase begins. During the luteal phase, LH promotes the development of the corpus luteum, which consists of the follicle cells left behind after ovulation. The corpus luteum secretes female sex hormones, mainly progesterone.
The uterine cycle. The female hormones estrogen and progesterone produced by the ovaries during the ovarian cycle affect the endometrium, causing the uterus to undergo the cyclic changes known as the uterine cycle. The uterine cycle can be divided into three parts: menstruation, the proliferatory phase, and the secretory phase. Menstruation lasts from day 1 to about day 5 and consists of the breakdown of the endometrium with blood passing out to the vagina. The low levels of the female sex hormone cause the menstruation to occur. The proliferatory phase is from day 6 to 13 and consists of the bud of the endometrium, which becomes more vascular and glandular. The proliferatory phase is caused by the increased production of estrogen by the new developing follicle. The secretory phase is from day 15 to 28 and consists of the endometrium doubling or tripling in thickness and uterine glands producing a thick mucus secretion. The secretion of progesterone by the corpus luteum causes the secretory phase. The endometrium is now prepared to receive a developing embryo. If fertilization and implantation do not occur, the corpus luteum will degenerate, resulting in lower levels of the sex hormone that will lead to breakdown of the endometrium and menstruation.
What we know about the history of menstrual hygiene begins with ancient civilizations. Women have experienced periods since before humans were completely involved as a species. Despite this, there's very little documentation about women's periods in ancient history, probably since most of the scribes were men who chose not to record menstruation. We know that women likely experience a much lighter menstruation cycle than we do today, partly due to malnourishment and partly since women start menopause as early as 40. Today, women usually begin menopause around age 50. Sometime in the late 19th century, people started to figure it out wasn't sanitary for women to constantly bleed into their clothes. This is where the history of menstruation products began. First came the hosier sanitary belt from the 1890s to 1970s. Women couldn't purchase washable pads that were attached to a belt around the waist. So, what about the history of tampons? In 1929, the first tampon was invented by Dr. Earl Haas. He developed a plug of cotton inserted using two carbon tubes, removed with a cord that extended outside the vagina. He got the idea from a friend of his who would tuck a sponge inside her vagina to absorb menstrual blood. In the 1970s, self-adhesive pads women could attach to their underwear finally became onto the market. Once this came out, the hosier sanitary belt was quickly phased out.